Welcome, everybody.
I want to know what.
I'm Dan Craig, president of the Golden Speakers Toastmasters Club. I'd like to welcome you here for our regular Tuesday night meeting. We meet here in the second floor conference room of Fairfield Business Park every Tuesday from 7:45 to 9 o'clock. The first thing I always remember to do when I'm up here is to pull out my device and suggest that you do likewise and put it on quiet so we don't have any chimes going off when somebody's trying to speak. The second thing I'm going to officially do is read the mission of the Toastmasters Club. The mission of the Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Hey, hey, hey. We're going to have several items of business at the end of tonight's meeting, but for now we're going to get things rolling by bringing up our Toastmaster of the evening, Jyotiraj Adhikari.
Thank you, Dan. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home, I am Jyotiraj and I am the chosen Toastmaster for tonight. Welcome. My role is to keep this meeting rolling on. And theme of tonight's meeting is changing times. And quote of the day is, they always say, time changes things, but you actually have to change them yourself. I think that's true. That's true. So we'll hear more from our table topic speakers later about this. And without any further ado, I want to introduce the role player of the day. The first role player of the day is our timer, Veda Royal. Veda, will you please tell us your role?
Thank you. I'm going to request that we follow the camera follows me over to the lights. Today we have the starting time as a green, the middle time is a yellow, and the ending time is a red. So that our speech today is going to be an icebreaker that's 4 to 6 minutes. We're going to have the green at 4 minutes, the yellow at 5 minutes, the red at 6 minutes, and then the speaker will have 30 seconds to wrap up before being disqualified. We just have one speaker, and then we also have table topics. The table topics are 1 to 2 minutes. We will have the green light at 1 minute for the qualifying. The 1.5 will be yellow. The 2 minutes will be red. And at the end of 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you'll be disqualified if you're doing table topics. If there's any other events to be timed, such as evaluators, they're 2 minutes to 3 minutes, so it's 2, 2.5, 2, yellow, 2.5, 3 for red. And if we have a general evaluator, we will have 3 to 4 minutes for the general evaluator at 3, 3.5, and red at 4 minutes. And I will give a report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Veda. Our next role player is our grammarian, Jean Symington Craig. Jean, will you tell us
Thank you.
And give us the word of the day?
Yes.
As a grammarian, my responsibility is to listen to the language used by members during the meeting, make a note of any exceptionally good or bad uses of language, give a brief report at the end of the meeting about what I heard and observed, and to listen for use of the word of the day and report at the end of the meeting about who used it. The word of the day is distraught, deeply upset or agitated. And using that in a sentence, he was very distraught to realize that he was the grammarian but hadn't prepared his word of the day. I'll be looking for word usages of that throughout the meeting. Thank you.
Our next role player is our counter, David Samuel. Please.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here after a long time, after a while, yeah. The purpose of the arc counter is to note words and sounds that are used as a crutch or pause filler by anyone who speaks. During the meeting, I will listen for overused words, including and, well, but, so, and you know. I'll also listen for filler words, including I'll also note when a speaker repeats a word or a phrase such as I, or this means at the end of the meeting. I will report the number of times that each speaker used these expressions. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
What's the word big and I can't see it up there? Distraught.
Distraught.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. So our next role player is D Stuffer. We'll hear a joke from him there in the meeting. Now we'll move to the speech section of our meeting. I would like to call our, I'd like to call Dan Craig to read objectives of Art Atkinson's speech. Is that okay?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, I was distraught to learn that there was no evaluation guide printed out, either by myself or by tonight's speaker, but we're going to soldier on anyway. I believe we've all seen a number of icebreakers. Typically, the objectives of an icebreaker speech are stated pretty simply. One is just for the person to begin speaking before a group. The other is for them to discover from the experience what strengths they have and what traits or habits they have that need some support, some improvement. I'll give an evaluation after Art's talk, but now I'm going to ad-lib a bit of an introduction for our speaker, Art Atkinson. Art tonight is doing the icebreaker. He's on the path Presentation Mastery. It's interesting to hear an icebreaker from a Toastmaster who is experienced as Art. We were talking just before the meeting, and it turns out he's been a member of Golden Speakers for 13 to 14 years. It should be a dynamite icebreaker.
Yes, it should. We will see.
We will see. We hope we're not distraught from the results.
Dan,
Lots
Get
of
the word in
points.
there.
racking up here.
Racking up the points.
I think we'll all enjoy hearing a talk from Art. He is a long-term member of Golden Speakers. He's known within the club for being extremely insightful in evaluating other speakers' talks. He's a successful businessman here in town. He's been a good friend to a lot of us for a long time. Let's welcome Art Atkinson giving his icebreaker speech.
Backpacking. Cross-country skiing. Gardening. Riding my bicycle all around town. Sailing small boats. Walking for the pleasure of it. Performing on musical instruments publicly. Dancing. square dance, English country dance, contra dance, ballroom dance, swing dance, Lindy Hop. All of this history or on hold. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. The awkward, slow-moving, stiff speaker before you this evening is a relatively recent phenomenon. 3 years. For 50 years, my life was defined by all these activities. I performed publicly on piano accordion, hammer dulcimer, and bassoon. I also learned to play concertina, button accordion, penny whistle, various flutes. On many of these instruments, I'm essentially self-taught. I raised a son and daughter with whom I'm very close. I ran my own software engineering Silicon Valley technical recruiting firm. I ate a very sensible diet of whole foods, no fast foods, very limited sugar, no drinking alcohol, never smoked. I meditated twice a day. I did at least one set of yoga asanas every day. Nevertheless, in spite of all this good behavior, three factors conspired to deliver me into the hands of Parkinson's disease. Environmental toxicity, inherited genetics, and one unfortunate bad habit. Taking these in order: environmental toxicity. Fairfield is right smack dab in the middle of Roundup country. Roundup, the key ingredient is glyphosate, a neurotoxin. Everything around here is saturated with glyphosate. The air, the water, the soil, the food, the plants, the animals, everything. Your lawn. My body tissues have 3 times the concentration of glyphosate in them as the average of all the other people that have been tested in North America. And 5 times the level that's considered the maximum healthy concentration for people in the European Union. My inherited genetics, I inherited a defect in my genes which gives me a very poor production of a very key enzyme called methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. There's a website dedicated to how you deal with this. It's so common in the population in North America. What it leaves me with is very sluggish, inefficient detoxification. Toxins tend to build up in my body as a result. What was my bad habit? Not getting enough sleep. Habitually going to bed at 12:30 to 1:30 a.m. and getting up at 6. Not giving my body sufficient time to flush out toxins and do the mental and physical housekeeping that's critical to maintaining health. Gradually giving myself the situation where the environmental toxicity and so on could do their dirty work. In another person that had different genetics from me, this seemingly innocuous habit might not have had such serious consequences, but this is a very common genetic marker, widespread in the population, And you are here in Fairfield with me, so why take your chances? My message to you is simple. Get 8 hours of sleep. Even if you're young and invincible, get 8 hours of sleep. Your grandmother probably gave you the same advice, and if you asked your doctor, he'd give you the same advice for much more money than your grandmother. Get 8 hours of sleep. That's the best.
Now it's time to evaluate our speaker. You have 2 minutes to evaluate. Mr. Timer. Okay, time is up. So I would like to ask our timer, did Art Atkinson qualified?
Art Atkinson did qualify.
Thank you.
That's a win right there. Given my history.
Okay. Now we'll move to the evaluation section. I'd like to call upon
ready?
Jean Symington Craig
Are you ready?
to the stage. Oh, not Jean?
No, are you
Dan?
ready to evaluate?
I'm the evaluator.
Okay, so Dan will be evaluating ours.
Should I go?
So I'd like to call Dan to evaluate. Oh. So this shouldn't go to general evaluation, sorry.
No, we'll go to.
Yeah, you should come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here we go. If we only have one speaker, it's
Yeah.
a little bit fast. Here we go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. All right. And Dan, you said you're ready?
Yes.
All right. Let's go ahead and welcome up our speech evaluator. Such a great speech, Dan Craig.
Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, that was a powerful speech. Well done and on time. So your new start in Toastmasters with tonight's Icebreaker, you're batting 1,000. Keep it up. I found a generic evaluation form, so I know the basics of what we need to cover here. The first thing the form asks is for general comments. What you excelled at, what you may want to work on, and what you might do to challenge yourself. Then it also asks for comments on various parts of the delivery. In the first group, what you excelled at, quite a number of things, as we all just witnessed. The first thing I noticed that I really liked was the opening. It's a very strong thing to just begin listing things out. He was talking about the activities. We didn't know what Art was doing in the beginning, but he was listing those things. Dancing, playing music, etc., etc., etc. And then he told us, those are all the things that I used to do as part of my daily activity. And he talked about the various types of instruments he played and so on. He contrasted that with the awkwardness that's come over him as this disease has begun in the last 3 years. Another thing that was very strong was at the point where Art was giving us his 3 points. He told us that there were 3 points that resulted in the onset of this disease. And the nice thing he did for the 3rd point was he didn't tell us right away. He teased us a little bit on that, and we had to wait to find out. And we all wanted to know, what is it? The other good thing that he really did well is when he got to that point, his 8 hours of sleep, powerful vocal variety. Get 8 hours of sleep, or I didn't get 8 hours of sleep. Really well done vocal variety there. The other things that I saw in Art's delivery that were so good were good eye contact, great audience awareness. he was telling us his personal story. It's his icebreaker. He was talking to each one of us very effectively. I'm going to say something that could be improved was actually on that point of get 8 hours of sleep. That was pretty much your end of speech. I always like to look for a conclusion that gives us a little bit of a recap. It might not have been quite as striking, but it's more satisfying, I think, to wrap up with the 3 points again. And what you might do to challenge yourself, that was a hard one. I think perhaps pauses. You had some good pauses, but I had the thought that at certain points when you wanted to pause before delivering a point, you could really milk it out longer. As I said at the beginning, it was a very powerful speech. Your audience really appreciated it, and we look forward to hearing you do more.
Thank you. Very good, Dan. Woo. Good job. All right. Now we're going to switch it up a little bit, and we're going to have our table topics session. And our table topics master for the evening is Adi Hazim.
Good evening, Toastmasters, honorable guests, and viewer at homes. This is the portion where you have the chance to come here to speak for 2 minutes. I'm going to explain the time again. You'll have 2 minutes. At 1 minute, you will see the green light. 1 minute and a half, the yellow light, and when you exceed the 2 minutes, you will see the red light. So, who's going to be the first speaker? Mini speaker. Okay. Choose a number from 1 to 7.
7. It's a lucky number.
What habit would you like to break and why? What habit would you like to break and why?
I'm a type A. You all know what a type A is. You're in college, you're type A, you're highly motivated. You're up till midnight, 1 o'clock studying for finals the next day. You get up at 6 and you're off. I was pre-med in college. I was going to go to medical school. But some things got in the way. And so there is that lifelong kind of thing with me of being frustrated about not doing that. Because my uncle was a doctor and I used to play around in his office. And I, as a young child, when I kind of got this from my mother. This is an interesting story about imparting things. My mother had cancer, breast cancer and cervical cancer at the same time. And this is in the 1950s. Women didn't live. And she did survive. My mother's... so I was around that emotional upheaval within her. As a young child, I inculcated that. It's not a word, is it? Inculcate? Anyway. Should have put it up there. So I've throughout my whole life, I've always had this boiling fire in me about being perfect and doing all this and that. And unfortunately, I moved into a town, Fairfield, Iowa, where, you know, it's a place where there's not a lot of opportunity for growth. It's, you know, people know it's kind of a crazy place. So that temper thing is still boiling in me, and it's something I'll probably have until my last breath. but it's okay. I'm fine with it. Let's have it like a break.
Thank you. Thank you, D.
Yeah.
And who's next? Who's next?
To go.
No, it's okay. I'll follow you.
Let's give her a big round of applause. Choose the number from 1 to 6.
3.
3. How has music changed in your life?
Has it changed my life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to change it?
Oh,
Okay.
has changed my life. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. When I'm dancing, I feel like I'm flying. I literally feel like I take off and I'm in the flow. And music for me and in dancing it's an expression. My body uses music and my dance to express who I am. Can't do it verbally. It's a whole different language. Music for me, in terms of changing my life, I don't know if I would be the same expressive person without having had various episodes of wild, frenetic dancing in my past. In college, we would have great bands. I went to Duke University and they had the greatest bands. I mean, people everybody wants to see. And my friends and I would get right up in front. I had no fear. And we would just dance because it was part of connecting with global consciousness. It was almost a spiritual thing that you needed to dance. So we'd be up there dancing as our little hippies bodies and looks and everything. And so that was a really important type of expression. As I've gotten older, I've had other kinds of dancing, and Dan and I have taken West Coast Swing, which is a great dance. Right now we're taking a little bit of a break because we keep seeming to get hand issues, and you all know about my hand, but it is a great dance, and you can, if you dance, and you can go anywhere. You can, and it's the music. There's music that, of course, is accompanying you when you are dancing. I think my spirit needs to dance. I'm got my dance on hold right now because of my wrist, but it's coming back. And it has changed my life for better.
Thank you. Who's next?
I think I'm gonna break this record.
Okay. Oh,
Sorry.
no, you're not.
Choose a number.
6.
What movie made you laugh until you cried?
Should say table.
Topics master.
Okay, thank you. I'm just kind of getting used to these words. Tabletop masters, fellow Toastmasters, and viewers at home. It was many years ago where I was distraughted because of so much of work at home. Had to catch up with a lot of pending stuffs. So after long hours of work at home, I decided that I need to really take the time to have fun and relax. And I have a very strange hobby. I feel some of you might also have that strange hobby of watching movies when you get really agitated or distracted. So I went to watch this movie where I expected it to be a comedy movie. When I started watching that, it made me laugh over and over. But then after some time, it had this very depressing climax and a very, I'm not getting the word, a kind of a strong emotional climax that eventually made me cry. So this is where it started off with so much of laughter and ended up with crying. And I think that's one of the best movies I ever watched. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a Tamil movie.
It happened with me once, 2 weeks ago, when I watched Joker.
Oh,
The Joker.
Heath Ledger.
Who's next?
I'll go. It's been a long time since.
Let's give him a big round of applause.
Way back when
Give me a number
So,
from
which are open. I mean, not taken.
2,
For 5 hours a
3,
day in the
4, and 5.
Today is
Two.
so much of work.
2.
So it's dangerous.
If you could do something dangerous just once with no risk, what would you do and why? If you could do something dangerous just once with no risk, what would you do and why?
I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. What I'll do if there is no risk? That is a very interesting question. If I have no risks, then I don't think that will be interesting doing. Because I do, if there is a risk, there is a chance of failure. When there is a chance of failure, then you want to achieve something. If there is no chance of failure, there is no danger, then it's already there. You're already there. You don't have to do anything. I mean, you go for that because there is a chance that you will not get it. Or it is danger that you will be killed. That's why you have that adventure and you go for it. And if you don't, you're already there. There is no danger coming to Toastmasters. It's fun. That's how I'm here, already here. So this is the thing. But to answer your question, if there is no danger and I could do anything, I'd like to climb all the mountains. Just now, a couple of weeks ago, somebody climbed like 8 mountains within 8 months. I want to break that record. I want to climb all these 14, the highest peaks in the world. Within 7 months, he did it in 8 months. I want to do it in 7 months. And that without oxygen, because there is no danger. Without oxygen, and just in this formal dress, running and jogging up there, climbing there without any oxygen, with all my friends, drinking and laughing and eating on the summit. Okay, that will be fun, just taking pictures, coming back, hugging my friends, okay, coming there. So that will be my adventure. Thank you.
So do people ever sit down oxygen?
No,
No.
he wouldn't have any risks. He could do it.
Oh, if you do, right. Okay.
We have time for one more.
I have a question for you.
For me,
Yeah. Let's give him a big round of applause.
I guess I don't have a say in the matter.
It's something about a frog, maybe.
Is it more fun to be a parent or a child?
Oh, great.
boy.
Yeah, you
I see.
What was the word?
Is it more fun to be a parent or a child?
Is someone
I'm gonna president just asked me to evaluate you.
Oh.
Is that acceptable?
That was, yes, that was my question, so that's fine. What was, it's more fun to be a,
A parent or a child?
Which is more fun.
You just to see the new wig. That's fine.
Uh,
Hello, Toastmasters and viewers at home. Boy, what a question. When I was first thinking about this question, my gut instinct was to say that, well, I think being a child is a lot more fun because you have no responsibility whatsoever. You know, you don't have a job, you don't have to pay bills, you don't have a mortgage to take care of and a house to clean, you know, because mommy and daddy just take care of that self, and I just get to have fun. But the more I thought about it, the more it's also fun having done that yourself as a child and then growing up and understanding what's really important and then being able to watch as an adult through the eyes of your child and watching them have fun. That has its own sense of fun that you just can't replicate. It's just something you could never explain to a child. It's fun in a way that I would never have anticipated. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. And that's why I think that it's a lot more fun being a parent now that I think about it more and as it ever was being a child. Okay, we're done.
We have time? We're done?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Back to you.
We're gonna call up our table topics evaluator,
Oh.
just let him know.
We need to check the time. The qualified.
Oh, yeah, vote.
Timer. Do we have any
Okay,
Who qualifies?
Sorry.
everyone qualified, the people who spoke, please correct me if I'm wrong, were Dee, Jean, David, Jyoti, and Aaron.
Okay. So you're gonna vote also. Now we're going to have the evaluators evaluate.
Do we need a minute or two to vote here?
Okay, let's vote first.
1 minute.
1 minute. So please help me in welcoming. We're going to have 2 evaluators.
No.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll just say a word
Okay.
about
Okay. So please help me in welcoming Aaron for the evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. Fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home, we started off with our good friend Dee here, who was asked if he had a habit that he could break. Now, I thought it was interesting because Dee and I actually have a very similar habit, which is our battles with anger. I am also a type A personality, just like Dee, so I had a lot to relate to Dee's speech. He had great eye contact with his audience, and he had a great start, just starting off, I'm a type A personality, you know, it just kind of went from there. He was very direct. Didn't greet the audience though, which was something that I typically like to see, and maybe I felt that after you had that great start that you kind of spent some time getting a little off track talking about going to med school, and I think that if you had spent a little more time maybe thinking about the speech and taking your 30 seconds, that it could have had a little, the energy you had at the beginning could have been taken all the way through until the end. But overall I was really happy with it. Jean, you talked about, your question was about music, how it changed your life, and you talked about dancing. You greeted the audience at the beginning. You had a very good description of how dance it changed over time, you know, as you were a young and single girl, and then sort of transitioning toward when you and Dan married, and how that dancing was a common aspect of your life during that time, but how it transitioned as you grew older, which I thought was really interesting, kind of that passage of time. And I sense a lot of passion in your voice on the topic, which I think resonated into having a lot of confidence in your speech. I saw that there was a missed opportunity though for you to show the audience your dancing moves. I would have really appreciated to see some of those while you were giving your speech.
Get Dan up with it.
Next time.
Yeah.
David, you were asked about a movie that made you cry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You greeted the audience. You had a nice description of how movies are kind of your scapegoat from the how distraught everyday life makes you feel. The only thing that I missed was I never found out what movie it was that you had watched. You had talked about this movie that you had seen, and it was like, well, what movie was it? And you know, what was the particular aspect of the movie that made you cry? But yeah, overall, I think your speech resonated well with audience members who were like, oh, I've definitely seen a movie like that made me cry. So thank you very much for that. Jyoti, you were asked about something dangerous you did. I thought it was funny, because this is something that I would do too, is I think, you know, both of us being in more STEM type roles, with you being an accountant and me being an engineer, you took a literal interpretation of it. You were like, well, if there was no risk, then, you know, you would be doing it already, right? And that's like, yes, that's what I would say too. So I thought that was really funny. But then you did, you know, take it back and say, well, if I'm interpreting the question the way it was given, then this is what I would do. So I thought that was kind of funny. And you talked about climbing a mountain, and you were obviously very, you got really into it, and just the amount of joy that you would experience just climbing the mountain. I think I just wanted a little bit more. If you had gotten really into it, like this is my magnum opus, my big moment. But yeah, what a trip that was. So thank you very much. That's my report. Who do I
Can
call
you
on?
give 1 minute to the other evaluator?
Jean.
Oh, just
Oh.
hardly anything.
Well, you could do it.
Yay, Jean.
I'll just, can I just sit here?
You can take your
It's not, it's like it's Aaron's show. I just filled
Pretty
in.
close here in the
So I'm Aaron's, oh, you want me to get up then for that? Anyway, Aaron got that question, is it more fun to be a parent or a child? And actually, I took a little bit of a detour because I started thinking, if we got Jyoti's son and Aaron's daughter together, we've got some longevity for the I just thought, so we need to arrange the play date soon.
Oh.
Well, at least they could dance.
When they can dance, absolutely. All right, so that was there. But I just was going to say, Aaron, the thing that I thought was useful and interesting to him was his analytics. He thought about it. It's kind of a complicated question, but he was able, in my mind, to make the case that, yes, that child experience is really great, but then there's something that gets added when you have had that experience and then you start experiencing it and seeing it again as a parent. It has a whole nother level of texture, and so that was what I liked. It was, and to organize that on the fly, I thought was very useful for him to do that. So didn't have a suggestion for him. I just think we will probably want to check in with them probably in 6 months, see how if he's still thinking the parent role is fun. Hopefully it is. Okay, so I guess I need to come up, right? Open.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Thank you. First, I'd like to ask the timer, did our evaluators qualify? That would be Dan and Aaron.
Our evaluators did not both qualify.
All right, who qualified?
Aaron qualified
Aaron
and
qualified.
Jean qualified.
Well,
As part of Aaron's. In fact, both of you added together even qualified, I believe. But Dan did not qualify.
okay. Okay, so we know who our best evaluator is for the evening. And we'll go from there. You don't have to do a vote. Now we're going to move into our reports. First, I would like to hear, since Veda has still got his mouth warmed up here from that last bit of reporting, if he could give the timer's report.
Thank you, Ms. General Evaluator. Tonight's speech by Art Atkinson was 6 minutes and 10 seconds. Dee's speech was so interesting that I'm not positive about this time, but I do know he qualified, and I put him down at 1:50. Jean, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. David, 2 minutes. Jyoti, 1:50. And Aaron, 1.5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Dan was supposed to finish up in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and he finished at 3:45. Aaron also was at 3:45, but he was allotted more time. And Jean,
He was.
yes, he was, well, because we didn't announce at the beginning, I went by the evaluate table topics as 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4.
But even to give him 4 minutes fairly, he still would have qualified. Even at 3 minutes, he would have qualified.
Well,
Well,
what was his time? Let's just cut to the chase.
3:45.
Okay,
3:45. Anyway, I'm kind of trying to kowtow to Jean, because her eyebrows raising.
That's always a good idea.
1:25 for Jean, also qualifying. That is my report.
Thank you. Now, our grammarian's report. As I recall, because I've got, you want to hand that for me? Thank you. I didn't hear any particularly outstanding usages. And for me, I'm looking for 25 and 50-cent words. Big. Did anyone say something that they felt that was really worthwhile that I just didn't catch? Word. I mean, we had some really good expressions, but in terms of just using some vocabulary that Art normally is good for that. I think he was going for some different effects tonight. All right, so then the usage of the word, I was a little distraught that we didn't have more usages, but the people who used it a couple of times. So you guys get brownie points. Dan used it twice, David used it twice. Oh no, Aaron used it once. Aaron used it once, but that's good. That's good. Okay, so that's my grammarian report. Okay. Now we would like to hear from our counter, David.
Thank you. So I had to mark down on the filler words and used by the speakers. Dan used once and he repeated few things, few words. So that was once. And Ark had a very clean and a clear speech, so I didn't find any fillers or any repeats for him. Jyoti used so and so is about like 3 times, and so on like 2 times. And then we have Jean who used once and like once, and Adi used so once, and D used for about 5 times. Yeah. And the one that's breaking all the records is David. Okay, he used for about 11 times and 3 times. Aaron used 2 times and 3 times, and then there were a few repeats. That's it. That's my report.
Joe.
And now we will hear a joke. D. Sounds good.
Well, because it's the coming holiday and animals and things, I have, with turkeys and stuff, I have a couple animal jokes. See if you can get this one. Why did police arrest a turkey at the bank?
Bank.
They
Withdraw his stuffing.
no, they suspected foul play.
Uh-huh.
Why do seagulls fly over the sea?
To get to the other side.
To get what?
To get to the other side. Now
As
that's
opposed
the
to some
chicken
other body of water. Because they flew over the San Francisco Bay, they would be called bagels. And there's a good bagel shop in
bagels.
I know of San Francisco on Gary Street if you want to go there.
Okay. Whew. All right, well, thank you for that. So now I get 3 to 4 minutes. David, you're gonna time? Okay. Now it's time for the general evaluators report, and as is our custom, I will be giving evaluations from my perspective on evaluators. Dan evaluated Art. He gave positive encouragement right out of the I said batting 1,000. So he had humor and he sure made Art feel good. He had specific likes, had the list of activities, he demonstrated vocal variety, that's all good. So Art knows that Dan really was listening to the speech. Dan gave a suggestion, better wrap up. He likes to hear a wrap up for a conclusion. Suggestion for Dan, and this is just for general. If you're doing a general evaluation, spend less time on the strong points, give a quick summary of those, and then move quickly into the suggestions for improvement. That's what happens with the competitions. Really get into that, and you're looking often for several types of areas of the speech to give a suggestion. So one area would be content, and it could be the word choice, it could be the structure really was well organized, something about the opening, body, and conclusion. You could also give a comment about the delivery, lots of gestures, great vocal variety, but you want to get right into those suggestions. Aaron gave, so that was my suggestion for Dan, was to consider less time, if you think halfway through, at least less than half on the positives, and then so you can get into the suggestions. I felt like suggestions came closer to the end. Aaron did table topics. I'm going to give a suggestion to Aaron right off the bat because we had a little discussion this week excuse me, about evaluation, is to try third person evaluating. So what that means is, instead of talking to David and saying, David, I like the way you did this, I'm going to also say that I think you should do this. So that's first person, is to talk to the group about David. I really liked the way David did this, and what I would like to see is David doing this. It's less direct, it's less confrontational, and if David is sitting there thinking, I don't agree with you at all, but I can't say anything because we're in the middle of an evaluation, it's not that energy. So I'm just gonna say, I love third person evaluation because it just keeps it, the rest of the audience is included, and it keeps it less focused on the person. Whether you're evaluating an evaluator or whether you're evaluating a speech. So with Aaron, he did just what he was supposed to do. He gave comments on what somebody did well. With D, he gave comments on things that they might improve. And he did that right through all of the speakers. I believe I heard a suggestion for each person. He told me I should put in some moves. He told Joe T, make the mountain bigger. Bigger, yeah. I think it was 14 peaks in 6 months. That's what I saw on my headline. I mean, it's incredible. All right, so that's something to trigger. David, what was the movie or what happened? You know, what was happening that maybe laughed, cried? So that was good. That was all good. And I would just say, just try it on. Try the third person. See if how that feels energetically for you. And that would be my report as the general evaluator. And at this time, I will turn it back over to our such sight for sore eyes, Jyoti Raj, our Toastmaster.
So now this is the much awaited time. This is award time. And the Evaluator award goes to best evaluator, not other than Aaron Russell.
Aaron, okay, yeah.
What do you call this, drum rolls?
Yeah, drum roll. Usually it's like this.
Rumbles?
Drum rolls. Drum rolls.
Drum rolls.
Rolls. Yeah. Like
Drum rolls. Table topics.
Yeah.
And the best speaker Art Atkinson. Here's your award. And this is
Icebreaker. Oh,
Icebreaker. Two for you.
I didn't think that's clever.
With this, I'd like to call upon Jean Craig for his closing comments as the president of the club.
Thank you, Jyoti. We have a few items of business tonight. First thing, we had our officers meeting tonight. We wanted to bring up here at the end of our regular meeting a couple of things. One is a reminder that this Saturday morning, all day Saturday in Des Moines, is the District 19 meeting, semi-annual meeting they're calling the Huddle. Jean and I are going, and if anybody else is interested to go see and take part in the district meeting, there's a lot of good elements to them. We'd be glad to carpool with you, so you can talk to us afterward. The other thing we discussed that we want to bring out to the group is we're starting to think about our special event. We try to do one once a year in January. And there's quite a bit of lead time because we have to find our speaker, get a bio, write an article, create a poster, reserve the room. So we'd like, if possible, to come up with ideas for our speaker by the end of November. I don't know if we want to discuss it. We probably really don't have time to discuss it any further. Two ideas that came up, 2 out of 3. I'll tell you 2. Okay, so we won't say anything. Let's see. At this point, I think Jean had 1 or 2 things that she wanted to run by the club, so let's introduce Jean.
Thank you. Thank you. Just one thing I would add on that is that speaker thing, we don't want to, if you could think about it in terms of the next week, maybe at the most 2 weeks, because we really do need to get on it. Because even if we find someone that we like, that person may not be available on the day that we're wanting to do it. So just put your thinking cap on and send an email. You all know how to do members at members-7515@toastmastersclubs.org. That group email that I send out every week. You could send that out and just float some names. We don't ask anybody till we've decided, but just have some ideas going. What I wanted to mention is, so I mentioned I was texting with Aaron this week. So I wanted to bring up something he asked, which I realized probably most of you don't know, which is how do I assign the roles each week for the agenda? How is that working? It's kind of complicated, but the EasySpeak, so I just want to give you an explanation. The EasySpeak software that we use, as I go over each role, it gives me a drop down that has all the club member names and how many days it's been since they had that role. So I can look and I can say, so-and-so, well, that's probably I need to get that person in because it's been quite a while. If someone just had it last week, that's probably not going to be the person I'm going to put in. So that's one element of it. I'm also looking at new members versus members that have been here for a while. So new members get what I call the easier jobs. So that would be grammarian, or it could be the counter, not a lot of preparation, just working in. It's very important, those jobs, but not as challenging. Timer starts to be more challenging, but we put timer in there as well. More experienced Toastmasters, I'm looking for evaluation, particularly, and some of the bigger roles, Toastmaster, General Evaluator, like that. I did call Toastmasters today and ask, when are people supposed to be, when are they considered eligible for evaluation roles? And it is after you've done your second speech in Project 2. So Project 2 is where, Arts did his Icebreaker today. He's finished his first project. His second project is now going to be to create a speech, get feedback on it, and then do that speech again, incorporating the feedback. We've all seen that here. Members have done that. So after he's done that, he's eligible to be assigned an evaluator role. Now, I assign Art those roles ahead of time because Art's also an advanced communicator bronze, isn't that right? So, we're all doing that, and same with me, but that's, so I have to kind of look and see what makes sense. And then I have people that are either not going to be here for a while, or Jyoti's out for a while, or David was out for a while. So that's how it all gets put together. And if you find that you have some role that you really would like to do and you don't seem to be getting that assigned to you, let me know. And I will put that into the hopper, because I don't want people to get bored, and I don't want people to feel like they're not getting a well-rounded experience. So that was just my bit. It's I've never done this before. I do know how we're trying to keep the priorities. Hopefully I'm getting it right. It's never a dull moment assigning you guys, but it's just give me feedback. Okay, thank you.
As far as I know, that's all the items of business that we needed to think about. Did anybody else have anything they needed to bring up before we end the meeting? At the end of the meeting, I always like to suggest that people talk to the VP of Education to schedule their upcoming projects. So please talk to Jean. Great meeting, everyone. Good to see some of the long lost faces back among us again. Good night.